The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Hi everyone, and welcome to webinar number 38. Today we'll be covering professional services. My name is Wayne. I'll be presenting today, and as usual I'll have Mike here available to answer any questions that you may have on the question panel. So again, you can use the question panel in the GoToMeeting or the webinar interface to ask questions. If you don't get to during the meeting, you can always post them in our forums, and we'll address them there. And a recording of this webinar will be available on the website afterwards. So the topics we'll be discussing today are the overview of the professional services dashboard. We'll go through setup and permissions, so user permissions and employee vendor billing rates. Linking method users to QuickBooks employees and vendors. We'll go through some budget and contract scenarios. We'll add budget contract line items, schedule some activities, and also go through submitting time and expenses. And then I can show you how, from there, we can invoice a budget or a contract, which is actually the same thing as a sales order. And then we also have some summary and reports that we can view. So we'll just get started here. So I'm logged in as myself, Wayne, into my method account, and I'm in the Professional Services tab. And here we're at the dashboard. So we have some quick links, similar to what you find on other dashboards. We have some quick links here to take you to your budgets, contracts, activities, time entries, expenses. Again, here you can see all the activities or time and expenses. These ones are just filtered to show yours. And we also have a task and activity calendar. But more importantly, the things you'll want to get set up before using professional services are these two things here. So linking method users to QuickBooks employee and vendors. So what that is in your Customize tab, your users. When you log in as a user in Method, those users initially aren't tied to a specific record in QuickBooks. So to actually make that link, what you have to do is go into the user settings, for example, myself here, and go to this field here. And what this pulls up is the employee list or vendor list in QuickBooks. So I'm linking this user, which is known to Method just as Wayne. I'm linking that to Wayne Barbaza, which is the employee in QuickBooks. So that's what you have to do for all your users that are using Pro Services to be able to use all the features fully. So we'll just cancel out of that. Go back to our Professional Services tab here. So once that's done, you'll want to go into setting up your Pro Services permissions. So you can do that by going to this link here. And by default, the admin would always have access to that link. So here we have a listing of all our users in Method, and the way I have it set up right now is myself. I can use Pro Services, but I do not have the ability to approve time or expenses, as you can see that is indicated here. The user FSG manager does have access to Pro Services as well as approving time and expenses. In the next tab here, what we have is a place where you can set billing rates and job cost rates for your employees. So as an example here, I have myself, I have FSG Manager, Crystal. These are settings that are set in QuickBooks. So you can view the billing rates here, but you can't actually select which level you're at. These actually have to be set in QuickBooks, and in order to do that, you have to have one of the either QuickBooks Pro Services, Accountants Editions, or Contracting Editions. So those are the billing rates or vendor billing rates are features of those editions of QuickBooks. So that's what you would need on the QuickBooks end. In the second or third column here, we have job cost rate. What these values are used for is to not necessarily when invoicing is done, so they don't have any effect on that calculation. It's more for internal reporting. So if you, for example, do a job that you charge $100 for, your job cost rate would be taken into account so that, you know, in the end, the profit may actually be $75 because you have to account for the fact that you spend some time and that costs the company your time, which was $25. So that's what this job cost rate is for. It's for internal reporting and being able to go through like profit type reports. And similarly for your vendors, you can also set billing rates and job cost rates. So I have them set already for the users that I will be using in this demo. So we're done here, and I can just close out. So now we're ready to start using the application. So you'll see here the tab links that are included out of the box in Pro Services are the customer list, budgets, contracts, invoices, and reports. So your customer list is the same as you'll find in the Customer Center. It's just your listing of your customers. Budgets, contracts is can be thought of as a fancy sales order. So it is based off and built on top of the sales order screen, but it has different naming, a few additional fields and tabs that cater to professional service type jobs. So that's why it's named budgets and contracts. And the way you can think of it is you're creating a sales order here, or a budget contract, from which you will account your expenses, consulting time that you may do. So you'll be creating a budget here and adding line items to which later you'll be charging or accounting for certain expenses and time that you will be specifying later. So we'll start off by creating a new budget contract. So I'll just select a customer here that I have. So here in my grid, you'll see that I have existing ones that I've created in the past. And now in my form here, I'm creating a new one. So you can specify all your QuickBooks related fields, class, PO number, terms, rep, and then you have all your fields here that you can select from as well. And linking this to our CRM, you can, just like you can do with invoices or estimates, you can link this particular budget to an opportunity or a campaign as well. So I'll leave all these fields to their default settings, and I'll just hit save. And I should see my newly created budget right here. So there it is for Becky Williams. And now I'll start off by adding some line items to this budget contract. So I can go add line item. For this particular demo, I'll think of a scenario where I'm going to be going out to a customer site, performing some consulting work, and I'll have various time and expenses that I'll be charging to them. So I will start off by selecting this item here, consulting intro, and it's for this case it's just going to be charging a fixed amount. So let's say there's an introductory meeting that is mandatory before going out to perform consulting work for a client. So this consulting intro in QuickBooks, I've specified the value in QuickBooks to be 50. So when I selected it, it did put the $50 rate in there. If I did choose to override that, I can do that manually by typing it in. So I can type in a value here, or I can select my billing rate. So the billing rate that's specified in QuickBooks for my user, Wayne Verbaza, that will be specified here. But I'll just stick to selecting the value from QuickBooks. Okay. And so in the charge type, what I've selected is fixed. I know that this is, so it can either be an expense or time. And I know that this is always going to be a fixed price of 50, so I've selected fixed here. What I can also do is specify it to be an hourly amount so that this would actually be saved as a blank, and I would be inputting that time later on. So that's when I would use hourly. And if I wanted to do the same thing, specify a time later on, but I wanted to set a maximum that can't be passed, then I can use this hourly not to exceed budget. The same can be done for expenses. So if I have a known expense, so say I do have a flat rate for traveling to customer sites, I can specify expense and put in whatever value I want, or I can specify expense by amount, in which case I would, again, it would start off as blank, but later on I can charge an expense for, say, gas money that I incur while traveling there, or supplies that I may have needed to purchase to perform the work done. And again, you can specify that you want to provide that amount later without going over a certain budget. So we'll go through an example now and just pick fixed, and we'll just go save and close. So here you'll see that I do have my line item added, fixed, and because it's fixed, it already has an amount that's accounted for in this budget. Let's add another line item now. This time I'll go, I know that I'll be incurring a gas charge while traveling to the site. I don't know what the amount is yet, and we don't have a flat rate for it, so I'll go expense by amount. And there is no maximum, so I'll just use this amount, or this charge type, sorry. And I can go save and close again. So what these fields here are used for is when you do, like for example, budgeted amount, is if I were to select expense not to exceed budget, I can say here the budgeted amount that I can't surpass. So if I did say put 2 hours here and the rate was actually 100, if I tried to charge for $800 in gas, then it would actually just split that line item into multiple ones, so that only the maximum allowed is billable, and the rest would be just put as non-billable. So I'm going to go expense by amount. Let's save and close. And now there's my second line item. And as you can see, it's set to 0 for the amount because we haven't actually entered in a expense. Let's add a third one. Now let's do some consulting time. Again, the rate coming from QuickBooks is $100. Let's this time choose hourly because we will be entering time later on. And you can also specify the QuickBooks fields here if you like, class, tax item. And I'll just go save and close. Actually, for this example, let's choose hourly not to exceed budget. So I can say here, I can't exceed 10 hours. So if I calculate that, I can never charge more than $1,000 for this particular line item. So if you save and close that, you'll see that's indicated here. There we have the maximum. The current amount still is 0 because we actually haven't charged any time. Okay. So now let's go and actually perform the work. And before that even, what you can do is schedule activities. So these activities are the same records that you would find in the method CRM. So what you can do is say for that budget, for that consulting time, you know you're going to be going to the customer site today. Let's just say from 4 to 6. So we have 4 p.m. to 6 p.m. Not started. And we can say on-site consulting. And let's just save and close for now. So this will show up in your normal, if you're using the Sales Center method CRM out of the box, you'll see that this activity will pop up in your listing, in your activity screen, or if you have a view of, if a manager has a view of everyone's activities, this will show up there as well as like a task that's to be done. So now let's say that time has come. You're at the site, or shortly afterwards, and you perform the work. You can now go back into that activity and let's specify here the actual time, or the item. And one thing to note here is if you don't actually have this item in your item list in the budget, it won't let you record entries against it. That's why you have to add it to the budget first, and then you can select it. So that's why I'm going to select consulting service. And now that we've completed the work, what I want to do is I can either, if I know that I'm completing the time within what I've scheduled here, I can simply go complete and enter time as scheduled. So that will take, that will set it to complete and just enter the time as I've indicated here. If for some reason it's not going to this schedule and I want it to just enter time manually, I can do that using this timer, and I'll go through that example as well. But for now, I'll just go complete and enter time as scheduled. So here, it's defaulting to the 2 hours that was scheduled. I can specify that this is billable so that it will be charged against that line item in the budget. And let's submit and close. this time. And if you remember, I do not have access to or permissions to approve time or expenses, so that's why I'm leaving this for my manager to do at a later time. So in my time tracking here, I now have a pending time entry, which is billable, $200, and it's to be approved by my manager, and we'll just go through that later. And now let's go back to the detail, and let's say after you complete that actual consulting time, and the customer calls back the next day and says they kind of need more help, and they'd be willing to pay for some extra time for you to go over some things with them on the phone. So what you could do is you can go back to time tracking, and without even using an activity, you can right away just enter in time. So what you could do is say they called in and they agreed to start paying for that time you're spending with them on the phone. You can set the timer here and go over with them on the phone whatever it is that they wanted to do and go through. And at the end of that, you can just simply stop the timer. I'll just fast forward this a bit. Say maybe you spent 1 hour with them. And it was consulting time, consulting service. It was billable. And we can go submit and close the time. So now we'll see 2 entries here that we have pending for time. And we'll go back to our details here of the budget, and you'll see that we still don't have anything billed against this actual line item because the manager hasn't approved that time yet. So let's go deal with our expenses now. So let's say for this gas charge, we wanted to enter an expense for that. You can go to the expense tab, enter expense. Select gas charge. Billable status is billable. We can say here, we'll just put a quantity of 1 tank, and maybe that costs $75. And we can hit save. And we'll see that now in our expenses grid here. And you can see that it is not submitted. You can then come back to it. We can submit it, which would put it in pending state, again, for the manager to then approve. So you can save and close, or just close out of this. So now you're here waiting for the manager, and we'll quickly jump over to that manager's login. So now I'm here logged in as FSG Manager. I'm in a different browser, in case you didn't notice. And we'll go to the expenses screen. We'll just select the actual customer we're dealing with. So Becky Williams. I'll just choose her budget. And we'll see here, I do have that pending billable gas expense from user Wayne. And to actually approve it, the way expenses are approved in Method is by actually sending that expense to QuickBooks. So the way that's done, you see I have it selected here. I can then click this checkbox. So I'm just ensuring that this is the one. I've reviewed it, and then I can go send selected to accounting. I want to send it as a check so that user Wayne gets their reimbursement right away. Select the payee, so just look for the employee name here. There we are. Select that account, create check. So you'll notice that sets the status of the expense to approved. So we can exit out of this. And we'll go also to the time tracking tab. And while we're here, just approve the time that user Wayne has submitted. So we can go here, review. It also recognizes that this was part of an activity. So I've been presented with this checkbox here that allows me to complete the activity and submit the time at the same time. So I can go approve and close. Do I want to mark activity as completed? Yes, I go OK. So that shows that time entry as approved. Note I'm still in here as the manager. I can then go to the other time entry. This one was the one that was just a consulting service that was done on the phone, the last minute one, so there's no activity for it. And what I can do is just straight away approve and close this one as well. So there's my $300 worth of time approved. Now if I just minimize this and go back to user Wayne's login, I can then see if I hit refresh here, those expenses and times were actually billed against these line items, so now they're showing up as amounts. So now I have my total budget contract or sales order here ready and calculated. So I have a total of $425 that I will eventually invoice. So I just hit refresh. Budgets. Here's my, not quite sure why this is not refreshing to 425 as well. Let's go ahead and invoice this sales order, our budget. So that's the one I have selected. So just like going from a sales order to an invoice in your normal customer center, the same thing is done here. So you can select your items that you want to invoice. Hit next. That will go ahead and create your invoice. It will pre-fill in your form. So from here, you can basically just hit save and close. And there's your invoice. So now if we go into the invoices screen, just hit refresh here, we'll see the new invoice created. It's synced over to QuickBooks, so it gave us our invoice number. And there it is for $425. So now if we jump over to, or back to the budget contracts, one tab that we didn't look at yet was a summary. So this is just a little summary screen here that can show you your contract costs, total hours, service amounts. So you can just simply select your different budgets here. And as well, the last tab link here, reports, is your basic reports that you can view. So if you view the ProService Simple Budget Contract Report here, as an example, it's just a PDF that will show you a summary and details of your various budgets that fall into the date range, and specified here is April 1st to April 30th, so everything this month. Let's try that again. Let's try another one. I'm sure it might be an internet connection issue here, but it was working. So basically what this shows you is just a report, just like how you see your reports or any other reports designed in the report designer. So it'll just display like a detailed summary for this report, and basically any report here, as indicated by the name, is what you'll be seeing in those reports. So that can be viewed in this area. So again, just to summarize, some of the things you need to ensure you have set up before using Pro Services is linking your method users to your QuickBooks employee vendors, as well as setting up the permissions in this area here, setup and permissions. Okay. So we've gone over all the topics, and again, the webinar will be available on the website shortly. And if you didn't have a chance to ask your questions on the panel, then you can always post them on the forum. Once again, on behalf of Mike and myself, thank you for attending today's webinar, and we'll see you at the next one. Take care.